Recording in
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar that will focus on maximizing student engagement through H5P interactive resources. And for those of you who are attending Cerebro's webinar series for the very first time today, you may have already heard about Cerebro because you're already using it in your school or someone from Cerebro has already presented our platform in your institution. And there might be some of you who are hearing Cerebro for the very first time today. And I hope that you'll be able to gain a deeper understanding of what we actually do and what we provide to schools right after this session. And just to give you a background about this webinar, so Cerebro conducts a series of professional development programs throughout the year, wherein we discuss topics on teaching strategies, classroom management, educational technology, and the like. And we also conduct training activities and community events that feature the various innovations that our team at Cerebro has been working on, while relating these new innovations to the developments that are happening in the Philippine education system today. And before we begin, I'd like us to take a quick look at what we hope to accomplish during this session. And whenever I conduct training sessions, whether for teachers, school leaders, or administrators, I always like to begin with the end in mind. And in other words, before we talk about any tool, any platform, or any technology, we first need to ask ourselves, what do we want our learners to achieve? And the same principle applies to this webinar. That by the end of our session today, my goal is not simply for you to know what H5P is. In fact, if you leave this webinar only knowing the names of different H5P content types, then I would consider that a missed opportunity. And what I would really like is for you to leave this webinar with practical ideas that you can immediately apply in your own classrooms. So our first objective is to identify the key features and functionalities of H5P for creating interactive learning materials. Notice that the focus is not merely on the technology itself, but the focus is on how we can use the technology to create learning experiences that are more interactive, more engaging, and ultimately more meaningful for students. The second objective is to design engaging instructional activities using various H5P tools. Because many teachers today already have good content. They have PowerPoint presentations, they have videos, they have worksheets, they have assessments. And the challenge is not always the content. Usually, the challenge is more on engagement. How do we transform a traditional presentation into something interactive? Or how do we transform a passive video into an active learning experience? How do we move students from simply consuming information to actually interacting with information? And these are some of the questions that H5P helps us address. And our third objective is to apply strategies for integrating H5P resources into lessons in ways that improve student participation and learning outcomes. This objective is especially important because sometimes when teachers attend technology trainings, they become excited about the tool itself. They learn how to click buttons, they learn how to create activities, but when they return to their classrooms, they realize they are not quite sure how to incorporate these activities into actual instruction. That's why today we will spend time not only looking at how H5P works, but also discussing when to use it, where to use it, and why it matters. Because ultimately, technology should support pedagogy. Technology should support learning. It should support teaching. Technology should never become the goal itself. And as we go through today's webinar, I encourage you to continuously think about your own students. Think about the classes you teach. Think about the lessons you struggle to make engaging. Think about those moments when you feel students are present physically but not mentally. Because throughout our discussion, I want you to identify opportunities where H5P might help you create more active and meaningful learning experiences. And by the end of this webinar, I hope each of you will have at least one activity in mind that you can create and implement in your own classroom. So let me begin our discussion with a simple question. How do you know if your students are truly engaged? So let's take a moment to think about that. When you walk into a classroom and you see students facing the front, looking at the teacher, sitting quietly, does that automatically mean that they are engaged? And for many years, that was often our assumption. A quiet classroom was considered a good classroom. Students looking at the teacher were considered attentive students. Students copying notes were considered engaged learners. But we all know from experience that appearances can be deceiving. I'm sure many of us have experienced teaching a lesson that seemed to go very well, and students appeared attentive. Nobody was causing disruptions. Everyone seemed focused. Then we gave a quiz. And suddenly, we discovered that many students had not actually understood the lesson at all. Has that ever happened to you? Because I suspect many of us have experienced that situation. And the reality is that engagement is much deeper than visible participation. A student may appear attentive while mentally thinking about something completely unrelated, and a student may be physically present but cognitively absent. And on the other hand, a student who is actively discussing, questioning, exploring, and even making mistakes may actually be much more engaged in the learning process. That's why today I want us to rethink what engagement really means. Because engagement is not merely about behavior. It is not simply about compliance. It is not simply about students doing what we ask them to do. And true engagement occurs when learners are mentally invested in learning. True engagement happens when learners are actually curious, when they are thinking, when they are connecting ideas, when they are solving problems, when they are actively constructing knowledge. And this becomes even more important in today's learning environment because our students are growing up in a world filled with interactive experiences. Every day they interact with social media, they interact with games, with videos, with content that constantly ask them to click, to choose, to respond, react, and participate. Then sometimes they enter a classroom where learning remains entirely passive. And we wonder why engagement becomes a challenge. Now, let me be clear. I am not suggesting that education should compete with entertainment. That's not the goal. In fact, one of the key messages I hope you remember from today is this, that engagement is not entertainment. Just because students are having fun does not necessarily mean learning is happening. But at the same time, meaningful engagement requires more than simply exposing students to information. And students learn best when they are actively involved in the learning process. And that is where interactive learning tools like H5P become valuable. Not because they are flashy, not because they are technologically advanced, but because they encourage participation. They encourage thinking, interaction, and those are the conditions under which deeper learning often occurs. So let's talk about one of the biggest challenges facing educators today. Diba? Keeping students engaged has never been easy, but many teachers would agree that it has become increasingly difficult over the years. Think about the environment our students live in. Every day, they're surrounded by content that is highly personalized, highly interactive, and constantly competing for their attention. A student can open YouTube and immediately find content tailored to their interests because it has the algorithm, diba? To detect what a person actually likes based on his or her search history or past preferences. They can open TikTok and receive an endless stream of short, engaging videos. They can play games that provide immediate feedback, rewards, and challenges. Then we ask them to sit through a 40-minute or to a 1 hour lecture, and it's not surprising that attention becomes a challenge. Now, this doesn't mean that teachers must become entertainers. That's not the solution. The solution is understanding how learning happens and designing experiences that keep students actively involved. And one of the mistakes we sometimes make is assuming that more information actually leads to more learning. But learning is not determined by how much information we present. Learning is determined by what students actually do with that information. Think about this. Have you ever attended a seminar where the speaker spent an hour talking while the audience simply listened? How much of that information do you remember today? Probably not much. Now compare that to a workshop where you actively participated, discussed ideas, completed activities, and applied concepts. Which experience stayed with you longer? Most likely the second one. Because participation creates learning, engagement creates learning, activity creates learning. And this is not only true for adults, it is equally true for students. As educators, our challenge is no longer simply delivering content, because content is everywhere. Information is already everywhere. Our challenge is creating experiences that help students interact with content in meaningful ways. That is the challenge we're addressing today. And that is why tools like H5P have become increasingly valuable in modern education. When we talk about engagement, it's helpful to understand that engagement is not a single thing. Researchers often describe three major dimensions of student engagement. The first is behavioral engagement. And this is the most visible type of engagement because it includes participation, attendance, completing assignments, joining discussions, and following classroom expectations. That when teachers say, my students are engaged, this is often what they mean. But behavioral engagement alone is not enough. A student can participate without truly understanding. A student can compete or uh, they can accomplish tasks without deeply thinking. That's where emotional engagement comes in. Emotional engagement refers to how students feel about learning. Are they interested? Are they curious? Do they see value in what they are learning? Do they feel connected to the learning experience? And students who are emotionally engaged are often more motivated and more willing to persist when challenges arise. And finally, we have cognitive engagement. And this is arguably the deepest form of engagement because cognitive engagement occurs when students invest mental effort into learning. It's when they analyze, when they evaluate, when they solve problems, connect concepts, when they reflect, when they apply learning to new situations. And this is the type of engagement that leads to lasting understanding. And when we think about H5P, What makes it powerful is that it has the potential to support all three dimensions. Students participate, students become interested, students think. That's the real goal. Not technology for technology's sake, but technology that supports meaningful engagement. Now that we've discussed what engagement is, let's talk about why it matters. Because sometimes engagement is treated as a nice bonus, something desirable but optional. In reality, engagement is closely connected to learning itself. Think about your own experiences as a learner. The lessons you remember most are probably not the lessons you passively listen to. They are the lessons where you were actively involved. Maybe you solved the problem, you participated in a discussion, you conducted an experiment, maybe you completed a project. Those experiences remain memorable because engagement strengthens learning. And when students are actively engaged, they process information more deeply. They make connections, they ask questions, they reflect, they practice retrieval. And all of these processes contribute to stronger learning outcomes. Engagement also supports retention. And one of the biggest frustrations teachers face is teaching a lesson effectively only to discover that students forget much of it shortly afterward. The problem is often not exposure. Students were exposed to the information. So the problem is insufficient interaction with that information. Learning becomes stronger when students actively work with ideas rather than simply encounter them. Engagement also influences motivation. Students who feel involved in learning are more likely to participate, more likely to persist, more likely to take ownership of their learning. And perhaps more importantly, engagement helps transform learning from something students endure into something they experience. And that is ultimately what we want. Not simply students who complete activities, not simply students who pass assessments, but students who actively engage with ideas, develop understanding, and become lifelong learners. And that is the educational goal that tools like H5P can help support when used intentionally and effectively. As we continue our discussion, I want us to reflect on another important question. What exactly happens when learning becomes active? Because when we talk about student engagement, active learning is often mentioned as the solution. We hear that term frequently in conferences, webinars like this, professional development sessions, and educational literature. But sometimes we use the phrase so often that we forget what it actually means in practice. So let's begin by looking at what passive learning typically looks like. In a passive learning environment, students primarily receive information. They listen to lectures, they watch presentations, they read texts, they observe demonstrations. Now, let me clarify that passive learning is not necessarily bad. There are moments when students need to listen. There are moments when students need to observe. And there are also moments when direct instruction is absolutely appropriate. The problem occurs when learning remains passive for extended periods of time. Imagine attending a 2-hour seminar where the speaker talks continuously without asking questions, providing activities, or encouraging participation. Even if the content is excellent, most people would actually struggle to maintain focus. The same thing happens inside our classrooms. The human brain is not designed to remain fully engaged through passive consumption. And at some point, learners need to do something with the information they are receiving. And this is where active learning comes in. Active learning shifts students from being recipients of information to becoming participants in learning. So instead of simply listening, they respond. Instead of merely watching, they analyze. Instead of only reading, they apply. Instead of memorizing, they create connections. Think about the difference between these two situations. In the first situation, students watch a video about climate change. Let's go to the second situation. Students watch the same video, answer questions during the video, predict outcomes, identify misconceptions, and reflect on what they learned afterward. The content is identical. It's the same video that they watched. The difference is the level of interaction. The difference is in the level of thinking, the level of engagement. This is why active learning is so powerful. It encourages students to process information rather than simply encounter it. And when learners process information, they are more likely to understand it, remember it, and apply it. And one of the biggest misconceptions about active learning is that it always requires elaborate projects or complicated activities. Well, not necessarily, because sometimes a single well-designed question can already transform a passive learning experience into an active one. Sometimes a quick reflection prompt can spark deeper thinking. Sometimes a simple interaction inserted at the right moment can completely change how students engage with content. And this is one of the reasons H5P has become such a valuable instructional tool. It allows teachers to introduce meaningful interactions without completely redesigning their lessons. You can take content you already have and make it more engaging. You can take a video and make it interactive. You can take a presentation and make it participatory. You can take an assessment and transform it into a learning experience. The goal is not to abandon everything you currently do. The goal is to identify opportunities where students can become more actively involved in learning. Because ultimately, students learn best not when they are simply exposed to information, but when they are required to do something with that information. And that principle should guide every instructional decision we make. Now that we have discussed active learning, let's take a closer look at what makes learning truly interactive. Because not all digital content is automatically interactive. Not all technology creates engagement. And not all activities that involve clicking buttons result in meaningful learning. In fact, one of the mistakes we sometimes make in educational technology is confusing activity with engagement. Just because students are doing something does not necessarily mean learning is taking place. True interactivity goes beyond physical actions. It requires mental involvement, decision making, it requires thinking. And at its core, interactive learning involves dialogue between the learner and the content. The learner does something, the content responds. The learner receives feedback, the learner adjusts their understanding. This cycle continues throughout the learning experience. Think about a traditional worksheet. A student answers the questions, the teacher checks the answers later, feedback may arrive hours or even days after. Now, compare that with an interactive activity where students receive immediate feedback. The moment they respond, they learn whether their understanding is correct or not. If they make a mistake, they have an opportunity to reflect and adjust immediately. And that immediate interaction creates a more dynamic learning experience. Another characteristic of interactive learning is learner choice. Students are not simply following a predetermined path, they are making decisions. They are exploring possibilities. They are engaging with content in ways that require active participation. And this is one reason why branching scenarios, which we will demonstrate later, can be so effective. Students are not merely reading information, they are making choices. They are seeing consequences. They are experiencing learning rather than simply observing it. Interactive learning also encourages reflection. Many teachers assume that interaction must always be visible, but some of the most powerful interactions happen internally when students compare ideas, when they evaluate options, when they predict outcomes, or when they explain their reasoning. Their, these cognitive processes represent deep forms of engagement, and technology should support these processes, not distract from them. One principle I always emphasize when discussing educational technology is this: technology should amplify good teaching. It should not replace it. A poorly designed activity remains a poorly designed activity, even if it uses the latest technology. And at the same time, a well-designed learning experience can become even more powerful when technology is used strategically. And that is where H5P becomes valuable again. The content types we will explore today are not simply collections of interactive features, but they are tools that allow teachers to create opportunities for thinking, responding, reflecting, and learning. And as we move into the demonstration portion later, I encourage you to evaluate each content type through that lens. Don't ask yourself, what can this tool do? Instead, ask, how can this tool help my students think more deeply about what they are learning? Because that question will always lead to better instructional decisions. Okay, now that we have established the importance of engagement, active learning, and meaningful interaction, let's talk about the tool that brings all of these ideas together. And obviously, that tool is H5P. Some of you may already be familiar with H5P. Others may be encountering it for the first time today. Regardless of your level of experience, I want to begin with a simple perspective. H5P is not just a content creation tool. H5P is a way of transforming traditional learning materials into interactive learning experiences. The name H5P stands for HTML5 package. While that technical definition may be interesting, what matters more for educators is what H5P allows us to accomplish. It enables us to create interactive content directly within a web browser. We can create presentations, we can create interactive videos, we can create flashcards, drag and drop activities, decision-based learning experiences, and we can do all of this without requiring advanced programming skills, not even external software, because you can do everything inside your regular browser. And one reason H5P has gained popularity among educators around the world is its flexibility. Different subjects require different instructional approaches. A science teacher may want students to classify organisms. A mathematics teacher may want students to complete problem-solving activities. A language teacher may want students to practice vocabulary, or a nursing instructor may want students to make clinical decisions. And H5P supports all of these learning scenarios through a variety of content types. Another strength of H5P is its focus on learner interaction. Many digital resources simply present information. H5P encourages learners to interact with information. As we discussed earlier, interaction is often the bridge between exposure and understanding. For schools using Cerebro, H5P is one of the many tools available within the platform that can help educators create more engaging learning experiences. But I want to emphasize something important, and that is the real value of H5P is not the technology itself, but how teachers use it. Because I've seen teachers create incredibly engaging learning experiences using very simple H5P activities. And I've also seen situations where sophisticated activities added little educational value because they were not aligned with the learning objectives. The difference is not the tool. The difference is in instructional design. That's why throughout today's webinar, we will focus not only on how to create H5P content, but also on why we create it. Every activity should have a purpose. Every interaction should support learning. Every feature should contribute to student engagement. And when those principles guide our decisions, H5P becomes far more than a technology tool. It becomes a way of designing better learning experiences. Now that we understand what H5P is, let's explore why it is particularly effective in supporting student engagement. And to answer that question, let's return to a challenge we discussed earlier. Many learning experiences remain passive. Students watch, read, listen, but they don't always interact. And H5P addresses this challenge by embedding interactions directly into the learning experience itself. Instead of placing engagement before the lesson or after the lesson, H5P allows engagement to occur during the lesson. This is a significant difference. Consider a traditional video lesson. Students watch a video, then they answer questions afterward. The interaction happens separately from the content. Diba? They watched the video first, then they answered questions after. So those are two separate moments. With H5P interactive video, the interaction becomes part of the content. Questions appear during the lesson, reflections occur during the lesson, feedback occurs during the lesson. As a result, students remain mentally involved throughout the learning experience. The same principle applies to presentations. Traditional presentations often encourage passive viewing. Students move from one slide to the next. Information is delivered sequentially. Interaction is limited. An H5P course presentation can transform that experience by embedding activities, questions, and opportunities for reflection throughout the lesson. Instead of simply advancing slides, students actively participate in learning. H5P also supports one of the most important elements of effective learning, and that is feedback. Think about how students learn. They attempt something, they receive information about their performance, then they adjust their understanding. That's the cycle that is essential for growth. Many H5P content types provide immediate feedback, allowing learners to recognize errors and correct misconceptions while learning is still taking place. And this makes the learning process more responsive and more engaging. And another reason H5P supports engagement is flexibility. Not all learners engage in the same way. Some learners respond well to visuals, others prefer text, others enjoy challenges, scenarios, or problem-solving activities. Because H5P offers a variety of content types, teachers can create learning experiences that accommodate different needs and preferences. And most importantly, H5P encourages participation. And participation is one of the strongest predictors of engagement. When students are asked to think, respond, decide, classify, analyze, or reflect, they become active contributors to learning rather than passive recipients of information. And that shift is exactly what many classrooms need today. Not necessarily more content, not necessarily more technology, but more opportunities for meaningful interaction with learning. So again, for schools using Cerebro, H5P is one of the many tools that are already available in the platform to support teaching and learning. And I want to emphasize that phrase, one of many tools, because one of the mistakes we sometimes make when discussing educational technology is focusing too much on individual features and not enough on the overall learning experience. At the end of the day, students don't care whether an activity was created using H5P, PowerPoint, Google Forms, or any other tool. What students experience is the lesson. It's the learning process that they experience. What students experience is how effectively their teacher guides them toward understanding. That is why H5P should always be viewed as part of a broader instructional strategy. And within Cerebro, H5P activities can be incorporated into lessons, learning modules, enrichment activities, even remediation programs, assessments, and independent learning experiences. This flexibility is important because different teachers have different teaching styles. Some teachers may use H5P as part of their classroom instruction. Others may use it for asynchronous learning. Some may use it for review activities before examinations. Others may use it for intervention and remediation. And there is no single correct way to use H5P. The key here is understanding what problem you are trying to solve. For example, let's say students frequently skip instructional videos. An instructional video might help. Let's say students struggle to stay engaged during online lessons. Course presentation from H5P might help. Let's say students need opportunities to practice vocabulary. Then maybe H5P dialogue cards or H5P flashcards might help. Let's say students need to develop decision-making skills. H5P branching scenario might help. Notice what we're doing here. We're starting with a challenge, then we're identifying an appropriate solution. We're not starting with a tool. We're starting with the learner. This is a principle that I often emphasize when speaking with educators. Technology should never dictate instruction. Instruction should dictate how technology is used. The most effective teachers I've worked with are not necessarily the ones who use the most technology. They're the ones who use technology intentionally. Every tool serves a purpose. Every activity addresses a need. Every interaction supports a learning objective. And as we move into the demonstrations later, I encourage you to keep this mindset. Don't ask yourself which H5P content type looks the most impressive, but instead ask which H5P content type would best help my students achieve the learning outcome I want. Because that question leads to better instructional decisions. And ultimately, better instructional decisions lead to better learning experiences. So if you're already familiar with the Cerebro platform, you just need to open your course page. And once you're already there, you will have to turn on edit mode by clicking the toggle switch on the upper right corner of the screen. And once it is enabled, you will notice that pencil icons will appear on each section title, indicating that you may now edit anything within your course page. And once the edit mode is enabled, you can now click on the Add an Activity or Resource button, which can usually be found at the end of every section of the page. Again, if this is not visible to you, then you may need to ensure that you have enabled edit mode. Then after clicking the Add an Activity or Resource button, a pop-up box will appear, something that looks like the one on the screen, which will allow you to choose different types of file or activity that you can create. Then you just need to look for the H5P interactive content icon, which is now highlighted on the screen. After clicking it, you can now choose which type of H5P interactive content you would like to use for your class or lesson. And later on, we will discuss how to create activities using the different content types. But before we begin looking at specific H5P content types, I want us to spend a few minutes discussing instructional design. Now, I know the term instructional design can sometimes sound intimidating because it's too technical, sounds too specialized, but in reality, every teacher is already an instructional designer. Every time you prepare a lesson, choose an activity, write an assessment, or plan a discussion, you are making instructional design decisions. You are designing how learning will happen. And that's exactly why this conversation matters. Because the effectiveness of an H5P activity depends less on the technology and more on the design behind it. Let's imagine two teachers creating an interactive video. The first teacher inserts questions randomly throughout the video simply because the feature is available. And the second teacher carefully places questions at critical moments where students need to pause, think, and process information. Both teachers are using the same tool, but the learning experience will be very different. Why? Because good instructional design focuses on learning, not features. And whenever I create a lesson, whether it's for a webinar, a university course, a teacher training session, or even a formation program, maybe for catechists, I always begin with a simple question. What do I want learners to be able to do after this lesson? Notice that I don't begin by asking what tool I should use. I begin with the learning objective. And once the objective is clear, then I can identify the most appropriate learning experience. And the same principle applies to H5P. Every interaction should have a purpose. Every activity should contribute to learning. Every question should encourage thinking. For example, if your objective is to help students recall information, then flashcards may be appropriate. If your objective is to develop decision-making skills, then a branching scenario may be more effective. If your objective is to guide students through content while maintaining engagement, then a course presentation might be the best choice. The goal is alignment. Alignment between objectives, activities, and outcomes. When alignment exists, technology enhances learning. When alignment is missing, technology simply adds complexity. This is why I often remind teachers that educational technology is most powerful when it becomes almost invisible. Students should not be focused on the technology, they should be focused on the learning. The technology simply facilitates the experience. And that's exactly how we should approach H5P. Not as a collection of impressive features, but as a collection of tools that help us create better learning experiences. And one of the reasons educators around the world appreciates H5P is the sheer variety of content types available. In fact, if you've ever explored H5P before, you may have noticed that there are dozens of different content types to choose from. No? Itong nandito sa screen ngayon, hindi pa nga yan kumpleto, no? I just chose a few na ipapakita dito. For someone encountering H5P for the first time, that can actually feel a little overwhelming. You open the content library and suddenly you're faced with numerous options. You start asking questions like, which one should I use? What's the difference between these content types? Or where do I even begin? The good news is that you don't need to master every H5P content type to create engaging learning experiences. In fact, most teachers will find that a relatively small number of content types can address the majority of their instructional needs. That's why for today's webinar, we've selected 9 content types only. But these 9 content types are practical, versatile, and applicable across multiple subject areas. These content types represent different approaches to engagement. Some focus on content delivery, some focus on practice, assessment, decision making, and some focus on reinforcement. And together, they provide a strong foundation for creating interactive learning experiences. And you'll notice that the content types we've chosen range from relatively simple activities such as accordion and flashcards to more sophisticated experiences such as interactive videos and branching scenarios. So this progression is intentional because one of the messages I want to communicate today is that effective engagement does not necessarily require complex technology. Sometimes, simple accordion activity can significantly improve content organization. Sometimes, a simple fill in the blanks exercise can strengthen recall. Sometimes, a simple flashcard activity can support long-term retention. And the sophistication of the tool does not determine the quality of learning. The quality of instructional design determines the quality of learning. So, as we move through each demonstration, I encourage you not to evaluate the activities based solely on how impressive they appear, but instead think about how each content type might fit within your own teaching context. Think about your subject area, your learners, your instructional challenges, and ask yourself, where could this tool make learning more engaging for my students? And that question will be far more valuable than simply learning how to create the activity itself. Now that we've introduced the content types we'll be exploring, let's discuss an important principle that will guide everything we do during the demonstration portion of this webinar. Different learning objectives require different learning experiences. This may sound obvious, but it's a principle that is sometimes overlooked when technology enters the conversation. Many educators encounter a new tool and immediately begin asking, what can I do with this? Well, that's a reasonable question. A better question is, what am I trying to accomplish? Because once you know your instructional goal, selecting the appropriate tool becomes much easier. Now, we've reached the point where we transition from theory to practice. And for the past several slides, we've discussed student engagement. We've talked about active learning. We've examined what makes learning interactive. We've explored the role of H5P in creating engaging learning experiences. Now it's time to see these concepts in action. Because while it's important to understand the principles behind engagement, educators ultimately need practical strategies that they can implement. And that's exactly what the next portion of our webinar is designed to provide. Over the next several demonstrations, we will walk you through 9 different H5P content types. And for each content type, we will briefly discuss what it is, when it might be useful, and how it can support learning. Then we'll move into the actual demonstration, wherein I'll show you a video of how the activity is created. And as you watch the demonstrations, I encourage you to avoid focusing solely on the technical steps. Yes, understanding how to create the activity is important, but equally important is the understanding of instructional possibilities. Whenever you see a content type, ask yourself, how might I use this in my own subject area? How might this support my learning objectives? How can this address a challenge that my students are currently facing? Because the goal, again, is not simply to learn how to create H5P activities, but to imagine how those activities can enhance learning. And you may find that certain content types immediately resonate with your teaching context. You may also discover content types that you had never previously considered and both outcomes are valuable. Remember, you do not need to use every content type. In fact, after today's webinar, I would encourage you to start small. Choose one activity, experiment with it, observe how your students respond, reflect on that experience, then gradually expand your use of interactive learning strategies. Because the most successful implementations are often not the most ambitious ones. They are the ones that are intentional, purposeful, and aligned with learning goals. And with that in mind, let's begin exploring H5P content types featured in today's webinar. So let's begin with the course presentations. So course presentations enables you, teachers, to author and deliver your course material directly in your browser. It contains slides where you can add various multimedia and interactive elements to engage the learner. So instead of using PowerPoint, Google Slides, or Canva, you can use a built-in presentation tool directly from your e-learning platform, directly from the Cerebro platform. And course presentations are used when you want a package or when you want to package a piece of learning content in a structured and interactive format, wherein learners can swipe through slides to experience the learning material while solving various quizzes or watching videos along the way. So you can try this as an alternative uh, to your existing tool that you are using because these are very flexible to use as they are simple to create, publish, and edit. Let's see how it works.
Course presentation allows designers to put together interactive resources in a visually pleasing way. They work best if you're making an actual presentation, or if you want to decide exactly where on the page each element will be placed. Learners swipe through slides to experience the learning materials, while solving various quizzes or watching videos along the way. Course presentations are built with a WYSIWYG editor. You drag in interactive elements from the toolbar. Fill in the required data and click Done. There are a wide selection of options. By default, elements are placed directly on the slide. But you may also insert these elements as buttons. When you've created a beautiful layout for your presentation, you may reuse it on multiple slides using the clone feature. You can upload a background image per slide or for the entire presentation. Also remember that elements may be copied and pasted to speed up the authoring process. Use the Bring to Front and Send to Back buttons to decide what content shows up on top. By default, elements resize and move 10 points at a time. But by holding down the Control key, you may scale them and move them freely. And by holding the Shift key, you can scale elements while maintaining their aspect ratio. Save regularly to avoid losing your work. Remember to test that the task behaves as you would expect when you're done creating it. Enjoy using course presentation.
Okay, now let's move to the second content type that we will be looking into, which is about interactive videos. So interactive videos are perfect when you already have a video clip that you want to enrich with interactive elements. You can facilitate differentiated learning by adding in-depth information such as pictures, tables, text, and links that the learner can interact with during video playback. You can also include puzzles for the learners to solve at any given time in the video by adding multiple choice questions, fill in the blanks, drag and drop questions, and even summaries. So let's see how it works.
H5P's interactive video tool is powerful. The normal use case is adding extra information and test questions on top of videos to make the videos more engaging. Interactive videos may also be used in more advanced use cases to, say, create games and adaptive learning. Start by adding a video source. You can either upload a video directly or paste a link to an online video. Once you add the video, you can proceed to the second step, adding a content item. You can insert content as buttons if you want to make the content optional and not necessarily interrupt the user or viewer. If you want to make sure that the viewer sees the content, insert it as a poster. You can use our bookmarks feature to build a menu for your video. You can also separate different sections of the video and add some adaptivity by using the Crossroads feature. Enjoy using interactive video.
Okay, now let's proceed to the third content type, which is branching scenario. So, branching scenario is a content type for creating decision-based paths. So, you can use it to make learning materials that branch to different paths based on users' answers. So, let's see an example.
H5P branching scenario. Branching scenario allows you to present your users with choices and let their choices affect what happens next. You may use it to present users with dilemmas and let them experience the consequences of their choices. Create adaptive learning. Or just let them choose their own path through your content. Start by giving your content a title. We recommend going full screen when creating branching scenarios. You may want to start with an introduction. This might be a course presentation. Titles are important in branching scenario, so we give all elements descriptive titles. Then we may present the user with their first choice in the form of a branching question. We add a question and 3 alternatives. We associate a video with each choice. Repeating the last steps, we may create a larger resource. You may choose to create custom end scenarios per branch. Go to the branching options and choose Custom End Scenario. Add a title, text, and image. You may also choose to send the viewer to any existing point in the scenario. Go to the branching options and choose Jump to another branch. Then choose the name of that branch. You may also customize what the default end screen should look like in Settings. Remember to save regularly. You may also preview specific parts of your content using the Preview feature. Enjoy using Branching Scenario.
Okay, now let's go to the fourth one. Let's talk about summaries. So summaries work best when they are presented to the learner immediately after the learning content. Examples are at the end of an article or a chapter of a text, no? Or at the end of a video or the last slide of a presentation. And summaries help the learner remember key information in a text. And it can help by actively building a summary about the topic at hand. So when the learner has completed a summary, a complete list of key statements about the topic is the end result. And summaries can be created standalone or they can be included in interactive videos or presentations. And either way, they are created in the same way.
H5P's Summary. By adding summaries after texts, lectures, videos, and other resources, learners will remember the important points much better. H5P's Summary allows learners to build the summary themselves. This engages them, helps them to check their understanding and recollection, and also allows you to track their progress. Summaries are super fast to create. Give it a title, and then you write each correct summary statement first, and a few distractors after. Add new sets of statements for each line in the summary. You may even go into the textual mode to create the summary even faster, putting the correct statements on top and have a blank line between each set of statements. Save and remember to check that it behaves as it should. Ensure that your audience remembers and understands with H5P's Summary.
Okay, next are flashcards. And flashcards can be used as a drill to help learners memorize words, expressions, or sentences. And typical flashcards provide a prompt on one side of the card and an answer on the other side. And in H5P flashcards, pictures are used as the prompt. So if you're looking for flashcards with text prompts, then take a look at the dialog cards content type, which we will be discussing also later. But flashcards are often used in language learning for drilling words and expressions. And flashcards can also be used to present math problems or help learners remember facts such as historical dates, formulas, or names.
H5P's flashcards. Flashcards may be used to memorize what various objects are called. It can be especially useful when learning new languages. Flashcards can also be used to spice up text-heavy pages with visually pleasing elements, engaging the reader, and logging the reader's activity. Let's start creating flashcards. Each card must have a question, an image, or both, in addition to an answer. Remember to add an alternative text for the image for screen readers. Click the Add Card button to add multiple cards. Remember to test that the task behaves as you would expect when you're done creating it. Enjoy using flashcards.
Okay, sixth is the accordion type. And the accordion content type can be used for presenting text when there is limited amount of vertical space. And the content inside uh, the accordion is shown in collapsible panels with a title. And each panel expands by clicking on the title. So let's see how it works.
H5P's accordion. Accordion helps you structure text and make pages less text-heavy. Sometimes, you'll also want to add optional text to your pages for those readers who are extra interested or need greater explanation. Creating accordions is super quick. Give it a name that'll help you find it in your content list later. Then, add titles which will be visible at all times. The corresponding texts are displayed underneath when the user clicks the listed titles. You may add as many as you like. Save your content and remember to check that it behaves as you would expect. Enjoy making your text better organized and easier to read with H5P's accordion.
Next are dialogue cards. And dialogue cards can be used as a drill to help leaders or help learners memorize words, expressions, and sentences. As mentioned kanina, di ba, flashcards are used for showing images. And if you want to show text naman, you can use dialogue cards. So dialogue cards provide a prompt on one side of the card and a corresponding answer on the other side. And it is often used in language learning for drilling words and expressions, like just like the flashcards. And one good thing about dialogue cards is it can also be used to present math problems or help learners remember facts such as historical events, formulas, or names.
H5P's dialogue cards. Dialogue cards may be used to learn or memorize almost anything. It supports audio so that learners may practice the correct pronunciation as well. You may elect to have dialogue cards display certain cards multiple times. Repeating those that you struggle with most frequently until you know them all. When creating dialogue cards, you start by adding a title for finding it later. You may also provide a heading that will be shown above all cards and a description. Normal mode will let the user go through all cards once. Repetition mode will have the learner go through the cards multiple times until the learner remembers them all. Each card must have a text for the front of the card and an answer for the back of the card. Cards may also have an image and an audio clip, as well as a tip. The image and audio will be displayed on both sides of the card. Click the Add Dialogue button to add multiple cards. You can adjust how dialogue cards should behave. The maximum proficiency level indicates how many times the learner must remember a card before it isn't repeated any longer. This is only affected in the repetition mode. Save and remember to check that the result was as expected. Enjoy using dialogue cards.
So, as you can see, compared with the flashcards, dialogue cards are more flexible with regards to the content types or content formats that you can put on the cards. You can even put audio, text, images also, compared with the flashcards na medyo limited yung kanyang pwedeng ilagay. Next is drag and drop. So drag and drop enables the learners to associate two or more elements and to make logical connections in a visual way. So sample use cases are when group elements that belong together. For example, you want to group all animals in one group, or if you want to group all verbs in one group. And if you want to match an object with another object, or maybe you want students to put elements in the correct order, or if you want them to reposition things based on a particular sequence. So drag and drop is very useful.
Drag and drop is a very flexible and engaging content type. You may, for instance, use it for matching texts and images, placing parts in the correct positions, or grouping items together. Making a drag and drop task starts with either uploading a background image or choosing a size. In the next step, we recommend that you first create drop zones. When you have created the drop zones, you create the draggable items that should be dragged to the drop zones. For each draggable, you decide what drop zone it should be possible to move it to. Do note that we are not providing the correct solution in this step. We only provide what drop zones should be options for this element. You can use copy and paste to duplicate the elements so that each has the same size. After adding all the draggable elements, we go back to the drop zones And this is where we provide the correct solution to the task. After we create the task, we confirm it by clicking Save. Remember to test that the task behaves as you would expect when you're done creating it. Enjoy using drag and drop.
And the last one on our content types that we're featuring in this webinar is the fill in the blanks, which can be used effectively in language learning. A fill in the blanks test assesses the learner's ability to understand context, vocabulary, or grammatical concepts in order to correctly replace the missing pieces of text. And in addition to native and second language learning, fill in the blanks can also be used to test the learner's ability to reproduce facts or mathematical inferences. And it can also be used standalone, or they can be used in question sets, interactive videos, or presentations. Either way, they're still created in the same manner as shown in the previous videos.
H5P's Fill in the Blanks. Fill in the blanks tasks are quick to create and flexible. You may use them to make text-heavy pages interactive. Learners learn and remember more if they are active while learning. Fill in the blanks may also be used to create tasks within many other H5P content types. They may even be used for learning new terms or for math tests. You start by giving your fill in the blanks a title to help you find it in your content list later. You may also provide a description that will be shown above your task. After that, you may write or paste in the text that you will use. Add asterisks before and after the words that are to be turned into blanks. If you have multiple correct words or different spellings, you may provide them with a slash between each. This is all you need to do, but you may also adjust the behavior under the behavioral settings. Here, you may find, for instance, that fill in the blanks check after each answer as soon as they're typed in instead of say at the end. Save your task and make sure that it works as expected. Enjoy making your texts come alive with fill in the blanks.
And now that we've explored the different H5P content types and seen how they're created, I want us to take a step back and revisit an important principle that I mentioned earlier, that technology should follow pedagogy, not the other way around. And one of the most common mistakes educators make after attending technology training sessions like this is becoming excited about a tool and immediately trying to use it everywhere. We've all seen this happen. A teacher discovers a new platform or application, and suddenly every lesson includes the tool, whether or not it actually adds value to the learning experience. The problem is that technology eventually loses its novelty. Students may initially be impressed, they may be curious, but once the novelty wears off, what remains is the quality of the learning experience itself. And that's why matching the right H5P content type to the right learning objective is so important. And let's think about this from a practical perspective. Suppose your objective is content delivery. You need to introduce a lesson in a structured way while maintaining student engagement. Then a course presentation may be an excellent choice because it allows you to guide students through content while incorporating interactions along the way. Now, suppose your objective is reinforcement after a lesson. Students already understand the concept but need opportunities to review and strengthen their understanding. Then a summary activity or flashcards or dialogue cards might be more appropriate. And what if your goal is classification or categorization, and perhaps students need to sort animals into groups, identify parts of a cell, classify historical events, or match mathematical concepts? Then a drag and drop activity could be particularly effective if it requires students to organize information. And what if your objective involves decision making? Maybe you're teaching nursing students how to prioritize patient care. Maybe you're teaching future educators how to respond to classroom situations. Maybe you're teaching business students to handle customer concerns. And in those scenarios or in those situations, a branching scenario might provide the most authentic learning experience. So notice what's happening here. We're not choosing tools based on their popularity. We're not choosing tools based on how impressive they look, but we're choosing tools based on instructional purpose. And that is exactly how effective teachers think. We begin with outcomes, we identify learning needs, and we determine the type of thinking we want students to engage in. Then we select the appropriate strategy. And that's why I want you to leave today's webinar with a mindset rather than simply a set of technical skills. Because technologies will change, platforms will evolve, new tools will emerge, but the principle remains the same. You need to start with learning, start with objectives, start with your students, then identify the tools that best support these goals. And if you adopt that approach, you'll make better instructional decisions regardless of what technology you are using. And ultimately, that's what effective educational technology integration is all about. And one question I often receive from teachers after demonstrating a technology tool is this: where do I put this in my lesson? It's a practical question and it's an important one because knowing how to create an activity is only half of the equation. The other half is knowing how to use it effectively. Let's think about lesson design as a learning journey. Every lesson has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Students enter the lesson with varying levels of prior knowledge. They engage with new concepts and experiences. Then they leave the lesson with hopefully a deeper understanding than what they've started. And H5P activities can support each stage of that journey. Before instruction, H5P can be used to activate prior knowledge. For example, you might use flashcards or dialogue cards to review concepts from a previous lesson. You might use a short interactive video as a lesson hook. You might present a branching scenario that introduces a real-world problem that students will explore during the lesson. So these activities help prepare learners for what's coming next. During instruction, H5P can increase participation. And instead of delivering information continuously, you can insert opportunities for interaction. Students can answer questions, make predictions, analyze situations, or complete learning tasks as they encounter new concepts. And this keeps learners actively involved rather than passively observing. And after instruction, H5P can support reinforcement and assessment. And summary activities can help consolidate learning. Fill in the blanks can strengthen recall. Drag and drop can help students organize and apply knowledge. So the key idea is that H5P should not exist separately from instruction, but it should become part of instruction. So think of it as an instructional strategy rather than a technology feature. And another consideration that is very important is pacing. One of the reasons students lose focus during digital learning experiences is because interaction occurs too infrequently. A student watches a 15-minute video without any opportunity to think, respond, or reflect. A student reads multiple pages of content without any meaningful engagement. And H5P allows us to break learning into smaller, more interactive segments. that instead of asking students to consume information continuously, we invite them to participate throughout the learning process. And when participation increases, engagement often increases as well. So the goal is not to make every lesson digital, but the goal is to strategically place interactions where they have the greatest impact on learning. That's the difference between using technology and integrating technology. Integration is more intentional and it is purposeful. Integration is driven by learning needs. And that's the mindset we should always bring into our lesson planning. And now that we've explored H5P and we know that it can fit within our lesson design, let's discuss several best practices that can help maximize student engagement. And these recommendations are based not only on educational research, but also on what many experienced teachers have discovered through practice. The first best practice is to keep interactions meaningful. And one of the easiest mistakes to make with interactive technology is adding interactions simply because the option exists. A video contains 10 questions because the platform allows 10 questions. A presentation contains multiple activities on every slide because the feature is available. But more interactions do not automatically create more learning. In fact, too many unnecessary interactions can become distracting. Every interaction should have a purpose, it should encourage thinking, and it should contribute to the learning objective. The second best practice is to provide meaningful feedback. Think about how students learn from mistakes. When a student answers incorrectly and receives a simple message that says wrong, then very little learning occurs. But when feedback explains why the answer was incorrect and guides the learner toward the correct understanding, then the mistake becomes a learning opportunity. And feedback is one of the most powerful instructional tool available to us. And H5P allows us to provide feedback immediately, which can significantly enhance learning. And the third best practice is to encourage higher order thinking. And not every question needs to focus on recall. Students certainly need foundational knowledge. Of course, they need to memorize, but they also need opportunities to analyze, evaluate, and apply information. So whenever possible, design activities that challenge students to think deeply. Ask them to compare ideas, make decisions, solve problems, justify the reasoning. And you know, the fourth best practice, which I think is also one of the most important best practices, is to maintain simplicity. Sometimes educators assume that more complex activities automatically create better learning experiences, but that's not necessarily true. In many cases, simple activities are more effective because they reduce unnecessary cognitive load and allow students to focus on learning. And finally, always remember that engagement is a means to an end. The goal is not simply to keep students busy. The goal is not simply to keep students entertained, but the goal is learning. Engagement matters because it supports learning. And when we keep that principle at the center of our instructional decisions, we create experiences that are both engaging and educationally meaningful. As important as best practices are, it's equally important to recognize some common mistakes that educators encounter when implementing interactive learning activities. And the first mistake is focusing on technology instead of learning. This often happens when teachers become excited about a new tool and begin designing activities around the tool rather than the objectives. Remember, students are not learning H5P, but they are learning mathematics, science, language, history, or whatever subjects they have. H5P simply supports that learning. The second mistake is overloading learners with interactions. More is not always better. Imagine watching a video that pauses every 30 seconds just to give you a question. At some point, the interruptions begin to interfere with the learning experience. Interactions should support learning and not disrupt it. And the third mistake is creating activities that are disconnected from lesson objectives. Sometimes activities become entertaining but educationally shallow. Students enjoy completing them, but the connection to the learning outcome is weak. And when this happens, engagement may increase while learning remains unchanged. That's why alignment is so important. And the fourth mistake is neglecting instructions. Sometimes what seems obvious to us as creators or as authors of interactive activities may not be obvious to students. Clear interactions or clear and specific instructions reduce confusion and allow learners to focus on the task itself. And the fifth mistake is failing to review and improve activities. One of the advantages of digital learning resources is that they can be refined over time. Pwedeng i-edit, pwedeng baguhin. Pay attention to how students respond. Observe where they struggle. Identify opportunities for improvement. And good instructional design is an ongoing process. And perhaps the biggest mistake of all is believing that technology alone will solve engagement challenges. Well, technology can help, it can support, it can enhance, but meaningful engagement still depends on thoughtful thinking about what your students will be learning. The teacher remains the designer of the entire learning experience. And the teacher remains the facilitator of learning. And the teacher remains the most important factor in helping students succeed. So, as we approach the end of our webinar, I'd like to invite you to pause for a moment and reflect. We've discussed student engagement, we've explored active learning, we've examined multiple H5P content types. We've looked at strategies, best practices, and implementation considerations. And now comes perhaps the most important question of the entire session. What will you do with this information? Because professional development only creates value when it leads to action. And knowledge alone does not improve teaching. Application improves teaching. So I'd like you to think about one lesson that you teach regularly. Maybe it's a lesson that students find difficult, students find boring, or where participation is consistently low. Picture that lesson in your mind and now ask yourself, what part of that lesson could become interactive? Could students make decisions rather than simply receive information? Could students respond rather than merely observe? Could students practice rather than passively consume content? Then think about the H5P content types we explored today. Which one might help? Maybe it's an interactive video, a branching scenario, or maybe as simple as flashcards or fill in the blanks. The specific tool is less important than the willingness to try something new. And that's my challenge to you today. Don't leave this webinar thinking you need to redesign your entire course. Don't leave the webinar thinking you need to master every H5P content type immediately. Start small, choose one lesson, create one activity, observe what happens, learn from the experience, then build from there. Because meaningful innovation rarely happens through massive change. And more often than not, it happens through small improvements implemented consistently over time. And those small improvements can eventually transform the learning experience for our students. And as we conclude our session, let's revisit the most important ideas that we've discussed. First, student engagement is about more than attention. It's about participation. It's about thinking, involvement in the learning process. Students learn most effectively when they actively interact with ideas rather than simply receive information. Second, active learning does not necessarily require complicated technology. Sometimes small opportunities for reflection, decision making, and feedback can significantly improve engagement. And what matters most is not the sophistication of the tool, but the quality of the learning experience. Third, H5P provides educators with a versatile collection of tools for creating interactive learning experiences. Whether you're delivering content, reinforcing concepts, developing decision-making skills, or assessing understanding, there is likely an H5P content type that can support your instructional goals. And fourth, effective use of H5P begins with clear learning objectives. Always start with what you want your students to learn. Then select the content type that best supports that outcome. Because pedagogy should guide technology, not the other way around. And finally, remember that technology is most effective when it amplifies good teaching. The tools we explored today are valuable not because they are digital, but because they can help create opportunities for meaningful engagement, deeper thinking, and improved learning outcomes. At the end of the day, the goal is not to create interactive content. The goal is to create better learning experiences for students. And if the ideas we've discussed today help you accomplish that goal, then this webinar has achieved its purpose. And that ends my presentation for today. If you would like to reach out to us to see how we can help provide an interactive learning experience for your students and for your school, feel free to visit our website at cerebro.ph or contact us through the information listed on the screen. Or if you're already a client of Cerebro, you may also reach out to our product specialists assigned in your area, and they are very much willing to collaborate with you in maximizing the use of Cerebro's resources in your institution. Thank you very much and good morning.